Hey guys, welcome back to One All's Pub. Forgive the voice, it's a little gravelly. I've been fighting a cold since New Year's and I just cannot seem to shake it off, so I apologize for that. That said, let's get on to the festivities here. Tonight, coming across the bar top in front of you is going to be a knife that I have that from the moment I saw it, I was like, holy cow, I dig that knife. You know how there's just some knives, us knife nuts out there, there's some knives, we see them, and the second we see them, we just know, I got to get that one. I have to get that one in hand, I have to feel it. I got to see what that one's all about. Some just hit you just right. Now, sometimes you get them in hand and they're not that great, or the thrill wears off pretty quickly, or you realize that maybe they weren't all that fantastic and you're not that enthralled with them. Other knives, you see them online initially, and you're not that enthralled with them, but you eventually do get one, and then you end up falling in love with it. And some you fall in love with online when you first see them, and you get them in hand, and then you still are in love with them or fall even more in love with them. And that's what this knife is. And that knife is the Viper Knives Odino, a Jesper Voxnays design made by the fine knife making folks in Maniago, Italy. And man, is this just a sexy knife. The second I saw this knife, I was just, and it was a big made a big splash on Instagram at the end of 2014. And the second I saw this, I was just like, wow, I got to get me one of those. Went out, put my email notifications up at Blade HQ, and thought, well, we'll see what happens if I can get one or not. I don't know. Wasn't too optimistic about it because they were not in great quantities. They were pretty limited quantities when they first came out, and they still aren't. They still aren't easy to get. They're still tough to find, especially the all TI ones, which this one is. And I'm sorry, I'm getting a pretty nasty glare off of that. That's a little better. The all TI with the stonewash blade was kind of the one I wanted, so I went out and put an auto notification for that one. Completely not expecting to find one anytime soon, but thought you never know. Well, as luck would have it, a few days before Christmas, I got an email from Blade HQ saying, hey, we got one of these in stock. So I jumped out to their website. It was at my lunch hour, actually, at work. I jumped out to their website. Sure enough, there it was. Took me about 3.2 seconds to decide, and I pulled the trigger on it. Wasn't looking to buy a knife at that time. Right before Christmas wasn't really the best time to buy a knife, but I made my wife volunteer to give it to me. How do you like that? Let's put it that way. At any rate, went ahead and took a stab, picked it up, and got it for Christmas. Now, when I got it, I did, I showed up a few days before Christmas, and I did, kind of play with it a little bit and post a few pictures on Instagram and whatnot. But then wrapped it back up and stuck it back under the tree and opened it Christmas morning. And have been in love with it ever since. It really is a cool knife, and it's a kind of a small knife, blade wise, as far as when you spec it out, blade and handle. It's 3 inches, but with a 4 3/8 handle. So it's not a big knife, as far as size wise. You take a knife like the Sebenza. This is the large Sebenza. Again, I've got a lot of room in here. You can see this large Sebenza has quite a bit more blade to it, at least lengthwise, and I tend to favor 3.5 inch size. The Sebenza is 3 5/8 inch blade. I tend not to usually go the 3-inch blade. I do have a few that I like. Of course, this. I also like this guy a lot. The SR2A it's a 3 1/8 inch blade, I think it is. And I like this guy a lot. The Cold Steel Mini Recon 1 with its 3-inch blade, which is really a 2 7/inch blade, which actually, if you put a measuring tape to this and you measure from the furthest point of the handle, this little peak at the handle, from here to here, it comes out to 2 7/8 inches as well. If you measure from here, it's 3 inches. But you measure from here, it's 2 7/8. So I guess I'm not quite sure what the deal is, but so it actually even comes in a little shorter than 3 inches. That said, like I said, I tend not to favor 3-inch knives. I do have a few that I like, but they tend to be the exception and not the rule. And even then, I always kind of find myself wishing they were just a little bit bigger. Not a lot bigger, but boy, wouldn't it be nice if they had an extra 1/4 inch on it. You know, the mini Recon sure would be neat if it was 3 1/4 inches instead of 3, or 2 7/8. But this one, I don't feel that way. I'm very content with the size of this, and one of the reasons is it has so much belly that even though it's only 2 7/8 inches or 3 inches worth of overall blade length, and not all of that is edge. I mean, the edge starts here. You have cutting edge of under 2 inches, linear as far as measured from there to there. But if you measure the sweep, you know, if you take into account the belly, which is, there's a significant belly on this knife, you end up with almost 3 1/4 inches worth of cutting edge on this guy, and that is pretty impressive considering the size of the blade. So you get a lot of cutting power in a shorter blade, which is very cool. It's very economical use of the space that they built the knife in. Another reason I tend to not like 3-inch bladed knives because they tend to be smaller knives in general. For instance, and it's not, again, excuse me, it's not that I don't like 3-inch bladed knives. And the knife I'm about to show you I like a lot, but I don't carry it a lot. And that knife is, just as an example, the Ontario Rat 2. This is a knife that's very analogous to a lot of 3-inch bladed knives. It's not only shorter blade, being the 3-inch, but it's also a shorter or a slimmer handle all around. Much like the small Sabenza, it's got a very slim handle and it's very small in pocket, which is nice for carry. But it's also small in hand and never feels particularly. I mean, certainly EDC, it's very functional and fine, and this is a great knife for that function. And I love this knife in many ways, but I don't carry it a lot. Because it's just almost a little bit too small for me. One of the reasons I like this is that it's still a chunky knife. It still has a good feel to it in hand. Same way with this. It's got a good feel to it in hand. It doesn't feel particularly small in hand, where a knife more this size does. And you can see just the difference in how much, you know, gripping, not gripping isn't the right word, just how much surface area there is to hold onto the knife. It's just not as rewarding to my hand from a tactility perspective, I guess, let's say. Well, excuse my voice in my throat again. Well, the Odino is much like these other knives that I like so much, meaning the cold steel and the line steel, in that it fills the hand. It holds like a big knife, yet it's still a small knife. There's some drawbacks to that. It's heavier, and it's than significantly heavier than this. But I really find that when I have this knife in my pocket and in my hand, I don't feel underknifed. I feel like I've got not only plenty of knife to do whatever job I want, but just plenty of knife for knife fondling. Like, I enjoy fondling this knife because it's hand filling. This one isn't as fun and knives this size aren't as fun to fondle for me. I used to have a small Sabenza, and I got rid of it for that reason, just because it was too small. I didn't enjoy fondling it as much and just having it in my pocket, and I always felt like it was just not quite enough knife for me, size-wise. I mean, it was plenty. It did more than enough knife for me cutting task-wise. Frankly, most days, that's enough knife for me cutting task-wise. So it's not just about what I need to get done on an individual basis, on an individual day for cutting. Certainly I can get done plenty of cutting with far smaller knives. Goodness knows I don't need that to open boxes or my mail. But it's just nice to have. Feels good in the hand and it's fun to play with, right? That's the cold steel Tolor, by the way. Review on that beauty coming eventually too when I get around to it. Sorry, but that's a cool knife. Put him back. Anyway, my point is with the Odino is that it has this great in-hand feel. And when I first ordered it, I was concerned about the ergonomics. I thought maybe ergonomically this might be a little challenging, or a little challenged from the perspective that it has kind of a the way this cutout is right here. When you see this picture, the picture of this knife online, and you don't quite having in your brain exactly what the dimensions are going to be like, even though you've read the specs. One of the issues that I was afraid of is that cutout was going to be too big, and that my my middle finger then would end up writing right there and causing me pain, being like a hot spot. Much like the Curtis F3 does. If you refer to my video on the Curtis F3, one of my main critiques of it was that ergonomically it was just terrible, because the index finger cutout was so huge that it just rode right into the middle of the middle finger and made for a very uncomfortable hot spot. Well, as you can see, this is not that. This is perfectly done. You almost get, at least I almost get 4 full fingers on there. When I held like this, I mean, it's real close. I mean, you could even call it a full 4-finger grip if you wanted to. Worst case scenario, maybe 4 3/4. Excuse me, 3 3/4. But regardless, it feels great in hand. No jimping to speak of, which is a little bit of a buzzkill, but that's okay. It's not that big of a deal. Again, it's an EDC knife, and it does, this whole knife with all the TI just has this nice, smooth, all-around feel to it. So that fits the character of the knife for sure. And while not really truly a forward finger choil, it does have an area here that actually acts as one and gives you an additional option for carry or for holding it in use, and it really has a nice feel to it there, and you can just see how that would be really good for up close work. Really comfortable in a variety of grips, even reverse grip comes in pretty nice. Again, I don't know that, no, I can't think of a time when I've ever actually used a knife like this, but if I ever had to, you'd be in trouble, Bert. Cut you, man. Anyway, it's just when I saw the knife, I loved the way it looked, but I was concerned about the ergonomics, is what I'm trying to say. And once I got it in hand, no worries. It actually feels great. As a matter of fact, I liked it so much that I wish I could say that was the cold, but that's actually drama building for this. Yeah, I know, you guys. Okay, so I had to get another one. Yeah, I like the knife a lot. I really like it a lot. Now, I originally got this one and wanted the all stonewash version, both in the handle and in the blade, because the blade is N690 CO, which is N690 is a lot like VG10, both in performance and in how fingerprint happy it is. And and I knew that going in, so I figured I'll get the stonewash version, because not as big a deal. You certainly can't see all those fingerprints that you do on the satin bladed version, and this is the satin bladed version. You can see how beautiful the satin is. I mean, they did a very nice job. You can also see already a couple fingerprints there. But you see how just very gorgeous the satin is. Unfortunately, much like VG10, and this is one of the reasons I'm not a huge fan of VG10. Look at the fingerprint. Just one touch. It's very fingerprint happy. So that is kind of just from an OCD perspective, manual retentiveness, just it kind of makes me a little bit crazy. So the all stonewash one is kind of nice in that regard. That said, when I had this, and I got this one first, then when I ran across the opportunity to pick another one up, and I got this one off of USN, I was looking then, if I was going to get another one, I wanted to get it in satin bladed. Anyway, just for variety's sake. So I did pick this one up. I stumbled across one in carbon fiber, which I thought, oh, that'll be great. Well, I'll get into that in a minute. The carbon fiber, beware of the carbon fiber on these. I'll say that, and I'll show you why in a minute. But that said, I picked up a couple of these guys. I do dig the cool blue anode backspacer and lanyard slot here. It's just plain old gray TI on that one. A couple of really nice knives, really nice in hand. Like I said, lots of belly, lots of sweeping belly, lots of cutting edge. You're really getting a lot of cutting edge in a smallish blade. But that still feels really good in hand, and it still carries nicely. This one is considerably lighter. This comes in at it lists at 5.52 ounces. On my digital scale, it comes in more about 5.54. This one lists at 4.35 ounces, and on my digital scale, it comes in at 4.37. I'm pretty sure my scale is pretty much right on, because I've got some other knives that I've weighed that are right on spec. Some, like a Sabenza, really come in just right on the money, so or real close to it. So I'm sure pretty sure my scale is calibrated pretty well. So they are just a touch heavier than they advertise, but it's not to say that I can feel 2/100ths of an ounce, and neither can you. So 5.5 ounces, about 4.3 ounces, and you notice that difference in both in hand and in pocket. Grip wise, the TI is smoother. This has a little bit of traction, but not much. They do make a third version. It's a G10 version, and if I would have stumbled across a G10 version, I may have picked it up, as long as it would have been satin bladed. But I didn't stumble across one of those, and I did like the fact that this had the blue backspacer. That's cool. So that was a definite bonus for that. That said, they do have a G10 version too. What? What? All three? No. Actually, this is a buddy of mine's. I just have it here for the video. So just wanted to have it for a third comparison to show you guys. The G10 is actually pretty smooth. It looks like it's had some polish done to it. My friend did pick this up used on USN as well, and I suppose it's possible the previous owner did, polished up the G10. That said, I severely doubt that. I'm pretty sure this is just the way they come. If you're an owner of a G10 Odino, feel free to comment below and let us know if yours is like that. I'm sure it probably is. There we go. Sorry about the focus. This one's a stonewash blade as well. All three of these guys came really sharp from the factory. They're really nice edge on them. Way better edge than the Lion Steel SR2A that I got. This thing from the factory had a butter knife edge on it. As you can see, it no longer has that. It's got a very nice polished edge on it. Sleipner. Love Sleipner steel. All three of these guys came with very nice edges. This one I have actually resharpened anyway, just because I wanted to put a nice polished edge on it. You can see the light playing off the edge there. All three are very thin behind the edge. They're almost a full flat grind. They have just a slight flat right here, which you Edge Pro Apex guys, I'm sure appreciate that. Us Wicked Edge guys do too, because we get it in the clamp and hold it there better. But it's full flat from clear down, so again, I don't know if you want to call it full flat grind or just a flat grind, but it's real close to a full flat, especially from out here it is. And it's just very thin behind the edge, and just very nice cutter. No blade play on any of these guys. It's a bearing knife. They all drop very nicely, and none of them have any blade play side to side, up or down, or anything. They're just rock solid. If you look at the lockup on all three of these guys, and see them all very similar. The carbon fiber one in the middle is probably the earliest, and it's just barely a little earlier. That said, I do wish they all had a little bit more later lockup. Not bad, but a little bit more would be a little bit more in my comfort zone. They're about 25%, 20% here in the middle, and 25% on the G10 here. 35 to 40 would be a little nicer, probably. That said, I don't really expect them to be going anywhere and having any problems with it. I don't, I'm not going to be using these things to beat the heck out of them or anything like that. There's going to be EDC knives. I love frame locks, and I love TI frame locks, and that's certainly good lockup. Well, this one's not mine, but that's certainly fine lockup. Not worried about it. It certainly is rock solid, so no issues there. One of the issues that I did have with it, well, before I get into the issues, I guess let me finish up with the pros here, because there's a lot to love about this knife, and there's a couple things. It's not a perfect knife, and I do want to bring those up. But one of the things to absolutely love about it is its fit and finish, with a caveat. I'll say that the fit and finish on these things is extremely nice. They're fit and finished a lot like a Taichung Spyderco, a Taiwan-built Spyderco. They have a lot of the same kind of attention to detail in small areas that really kind of make you go, wow, that's nice. That said, there's a couple areas where they fell down. One of them, and all three exhibit it, is right here inside the thumb oval. If you can see how that's a little marked up. You can see the tool marks in there. All three are like that. So I think is even worse. is. There you go. It's like they just didn't have a process for finishing off those holes, for polishing them out. You get a spider cone, you just never find this. They're inside of the holes are finished as well as anything on the knife. That one's got a little bit of it too. They just didn't do that. It's clear by all three of these that they just had no intention of doing that. So that's kind of really the only consistent dig I have on their fit and finish, at least on these two. And I mentioned this earlier, and I'll go ahead and finish it off. The carbon fiber on these, I told you I got the carbon fiber one, but when I got the carbon fiber, I knew I was taking a chance. That's because I had seen another video, I think by Epic Snuggle Bunny, where he showed this, and I've seen a few of these online as well, and that is the carbon fiber on these is kind of crappy. It's all pitted. See all those pits? And that's just the way they come from the factory, folks. Even if you look on Blade HQ's website and you go to the carbon fiber version and you zoom in real close, if you know it, knowing that it's there, if you look for it, you'll see even the example they have up on their website has pitting in the carbon fiber. So they got a bad batch of carbon fiber, and instead of returning it or not putting the carbon fiber knives out, they went ahead and just said, oh well, and stuck them out on the market. Well, it's unfortunate because, frankly, these knives are an awesome deal for the money, but they're still not cheap, and you shouldn't have to put up with stuff like that. So that's a real fall down. That said, this gives me the opportunity to send it to my good buddy Rick over at the Toad Sticker channel and get a custom scale made for it. Maybe something in blue, maybe. We'll see. That said, so I have to warn you off against the carbon fiber ones. You know, take your chance. Now, maybe they're going to get some better batches of carbon fiber. Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. Just know going into it, if you're going to get a carbon fiber one, you're probably going to get pitted carbon fiber. Maybe they'll change. Maybe the future will lead. I'm just going to put this guy away for now. It's not really mine. I just wanted to show that one so we had a way to see all three of them here. But anyway, if you're looking at, well, one more quick thing. If you're looking at the three of these, I wanted the TI one, and I thought I was only going to get one, and if I only kept one, it would be that one. But that said, if I was going to buy them, I would actually recommend them in titanium, G10, and then carbon fiber order, just because of the fact of that. You can get any of these. You can get this with a satin blade. You can get this with a stonewash blade. You can get this with a satin or stonewash blade. So you can get any blade finish on any of the handles. This just happened to be the three that I have. So pick whatever you like there. But when it comes to the handle itself, get one of these two, and probably stay away from that. Like I said, I'm going to get a custom scale for it, so I'm not too worried about it. I got a good enough price on it that it'll still put me in a good place on the knife, so I'm not worried about it. But you know, if you're a carbon fiber fan, you specifically go out to choose the carbon fiber knife, and you get that pitting, you're probably going to be disappointed. So FYI, that's just the way it is. All around, though, the knives are extremely well built. Otherwise, they are kind of a pain to take apart. Well, at least this one is. I haven't had this guy apart yet. But this guy I have had apart, and the first time I tried to take him apart before Christmas, yeah, I was kind of messing around with my Christmas gift before Christmas, and I wasn't supposed to be, but I was, you know, you know how it is when you get a new knife, you just can't put it down, so I had to play with it a little bit, and went ahead to just take it apart, just to get just take a look at how it was built, and see the bearing system inside it, and just, you know, get a feel for the knife. Well, I could not get the dang thing apart. I mean, I got the pivot out, all three frame screws, and this thing just would not come apart. So I just gave up, put it back together, boxed it back up, and shoved it back under the tree. I talked to Rob over at the Apostle P channel. He had one in for sharpening, and I'm like, dude, how'd you get that thing apart? Because he mentioned that he took it apart and cleaned it and everything. I'm like, how'd you get that thing apart? And he said he had to pry it apart, and he kind of gave me some advice. So the next time I tried it, I went ahead and got it. Actually, I used a little piece of wood, and I got in there, and I just kind of twisted that and pried it. And the reason that it's that way is because the screws do not screw directly into the slotted backspacer here. what they do is and maybe it's because this is titanium, so they don't want you screwing directly into titanium. Could be. I'm not quite sure why, but they have a post that runs through the backspacer in these three positions, that a threaded post that you actually screw into. So that post, though, the scales snap down onto that post. So getting them off of that, even though you take the screw out, they're very snug, almost a press fit onto there. I mean, it really took some prying to get them apart. Once I did, it was fine, and I got it to go back together, no problem when I was done. But it was a bear to get apart, so beware of that. Also, be careful putting them back together because the hardware is very dainty. It's really not, you know, if I don't know why they didn't just skip the posts and just give us a bigger screw and just let us screw it directly into the backspacer. It would seem to have been a more direct and simpler approach than these pressed fitted posts that they have in there. But for whatever reason, like I said, maybe they didn't want to go with titanium, maybe screwing into the titanium, so maybe those posts are steel. I don't know. I'm not sure what the logic behind it was or what the design was. But at any rate, the hardware is pretty dainty as a result. Now, the post itself is what kind of holds the knife together. It assists significantly, so it's plenty strong. But when you're putting this back together, these screws are not big, and it's easy to pop a head off of that. I'll let Rob tell you that story. But so beware of that when you're taking them apart. They're kind of challenging in that regard. All of them, I don't know if I mentioned this or not, all three have stonewashed lock sides and bead-blasted pivot screws and pocket clips. And let's talk about the clip real quick. It's a very cool fold-over design, has perfect retention, carries deep but not too deep. It actually carries really nice. I mean, you put that in your pocket and just that much sticks out, which I really that's about perfect for me. It reminds me actually a lot of how a Sebenza carries. It's a little lower than a Sebenza, but not much. Just enough to let you know that it's there. You can get a hold of it if you want to. You can kind of see it in the pocket, but it doesn't completely bear. I used to be a real big fan of just like completely burying them and disappearing them, and you just don't see them in the pocket at all. But now I actually prefer them to have just a little bit of something up there. So this clip is just right. It's kind of cool. It's a single screw with a little lip that curls into the frame itself, so it's really secure. It doesn't have any side-to-side play at all, and it's got both of these have perfect retention. I'll go ahead and bring this guy back. All three do. Very nice. One other thing worth noting too is that this guy has just a hint of lock stick. Not much, not enough to worry about, but if you listen, you can just hear that. I don't know if you heard it or not. Just barely a hint of lock stick. Now, I got this knife first. When I first got it, I didn't even notice that it had lock stick. TI frame locks lots of times will have just a little bit of them. Again, to bring the Sebenza out, it always has just a little bit of hydraulic stick, which I don't mind. I mean, it's actually kind of feels good. I kind of like that actually even. This one has a little bit of that as well. It's a little bit grittier sounding. It's not a problem, and I didn't even notice that it had it until I got this one, and this one just has absolutely none, and this one has absolutely none, even more so. So neither one of these two has any lock stick. So by comparison, this one has just a touch. So it's just as an FYI, if you're a person that absolutely goes bonkers over the slightest hint of lock stick, then beware that it's a titanium frame lock, and that's possible. If you're the kind of person that goes bonkers over absolutely any lock stick, beware of the Sebenza too, because it does always have, every one I've ever had has just a little bit of hydraulic stick by design. So I don't know that this one's necessarily by design. I don't know if they heat treat the lock face or carburize or carbonize or carburetorize or radiator. Whatever the heck they do with them. I don't know. But it's not bad. Like I said, I didn't even notice it until I got this one to compare it to. And I was like, oh, hey, I have a little bit of lock stick. That said, I put a little bit of Sharpie on here. Let's see if I can get, if you can see. Put a little bit of, you can see. I don't know if you can or not. There you go. Put a little bit of Sharpie on the blade tang, but this is the side that it wears, that the lock bar wears on. You can see it's already worn it away, so Actually, what a little bit of Sharpie I have on there isn't really doing anything because it's already at that point of engagement. So at any rate, I got some Sharpie on there, and when I put the Sharpie on, it does completely disappear, but it's already worn off, and I got just a skosh of it back. But nothing that bothers me, nothing to detract. If I was scoring a point, I wouldn't take any points away. You know, if I was scoring these things point-wise, I wouldn't take any points away for a lock stick on it. So just as an FYI, I point that out. Like I said, I love this knife. These two are mine, and this is a buddy's. If you're going to get them, you know, be wary of the carbon fiber, just the way it is. But just great all-around EDC knives. Super cool, super sexy, super lean behind the edge, real nice slicers. I just love this knife. I really have fallen for this knife. Again, it's not a perfect knife. It does have a couple issues here and there, but it's so nice, and it's such a cool design. You know, it has kind of that second kind of cool that's just tough to argue with. The first time I saw this, I was just like, I got to have that knife, and that has stuck through the last month plus of owning it, and pretty sure my impression of it is set now. If you guys are at all interested in these, try to pick them up. They're not easy to find right now. You can, new that is. GP Knives has them occasionally. They may have some now. I don't know. I know that Blade HQ sold out as of this video, the filming of this video. But they will be getting them in more, I'm sure eventually. That said, you can pick them up. You know, if you keep your eye out on Blade Forums and USN, they pop up from here and there, so you can still get them secondhand. Both of these were secondhand. So, I do have to tell you a story about this. Now, I told you that they're well built, right? It's a solid knife. The hardware seems a little dainty, but because of the way that they have those posts in there, the knife is held together tightly. You're not in any danger of this knife being floppy or falling apart on you. And I have to tell you, this particular trooper has been through a bit of an ordeal. But a few days after Christmas, after I got him, it was pretty much in my pocket for the first several days after Christmas. And I was over at a friend's house, and we're sitting out in his backyard, drinking a beer and just BSing. And I'm like, hey, dude, check out the knife my wife got me for Christmas. I gave him the knife. He's like, nice. And he goes to open it, and he goes to fling it open, and he really wrist flicks it, and it just flew out of his hand, went crashing onto the concrete of the back porch of his patio. Actually, not his patio, another guy's patio. Another friend of ours' patio. Anyway, the knife goes sliding across the concrete. I about had a freaking coronary. Oh my gosh, I thought, that's it. It's destroyed. It's all scratched up. It's all beat up. The blade is chipped. The tip's probably broke. Who knows what hideous crap has happened to it. This knife took it all in stride. The only real wound it got was right there. If you can see that. Right there by my thumb. Got a little bit of booger right there on the TI and a little bit right there on the back spacer next to it. Other than that, it took it all pretty well. Maybe just a skosh of a scratch there too, while I'm looking. And one little, barely something on the blade edge here. And the edge itself did get pretty boogered up, which is why I ended up resharpening it, because like I said, it came from the factory very sharp, but the edge did get boogered up when it got dropped. Anyway, dropped isn't the word. It got thrown 15 feet across the concrete floor is what happened. Look how well it held up. Guys, I'm confident this knife can take a beating, because it's pretty much been bowling, and it was the bowling ball. So anyway, guys, these are great knives. Pick yourself up one if you're at all interested in it. I don't think you'll be disappointed unless you get that. If you get that, just beware that that the carbon fiber probably sucks. Get yourself a G10 or a titanium version, and I don't think you'll have any issues at all. If you get the carbon fiber, just be prepared to maybe replace that if that's going to bother you. Or wait it out. You know, maybe the next batch will have better carbon fiber. I'm sure I'm not the only one that's noticed it, and I'm sure they've gotten complaints from other customers, and the retailers have probably gotten complaints about, maybe even have some returns on the carbon fiber versions. I don't know. Any rate, the Viper Knives Odino, designed by Jesper Boxnays. Kicking knives, guys. pick one up if you are at all interested. And that is 1 all 2 cents. Keep the change. Sláinte.